Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul, joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler, who's back home on this Thanksgiving evening. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone who's listening. If you can call it a happy Thanksgiving anymore,
not
Mr.
for me.
Ziegler. Look, the day started off with that Lions-Bears game, and as Vikings fans, everyone knows, the Packers fans who are listening to this, we were all rooting for the Bears in this one, and just mind-numbing coaching late in the game from Chicago, just a ridiculous set of decision-making, and the Lions get another win. We might hit that a little bit more at the end, but then Giants-Cowboys, don't know how many people watched it, don't know how many people cared.
Hopefully no one.
Yep. And then the night game was supposed to be the big one with the Packers and the Dolphins here, and Green Bay just from the very beginning again. We talked about Miami going up into Wisconsin, into the cold. Everyone knows about the struggles they've had, the struggles that Tua has had in cold weather games. And immediately you see the fumble from the Dolphins. The Packers capitalize, get a touchdown. And from the get-go, they're on another team's throats immediately. So Ziggy, 30-17 was the final score of the win here. What was your big takeaway from this horrific Thanksgiving evening or Thanksgiving scene?
My big takeaway from this is, what have we been saying all season? We've been saying that we haven't seen a game where the Packers offense and the Packers defense and the Packers special teams have all sort of worked together to create a complete team victory. This was that game for the Packers, and that's what makes me nervous. Jordan Love was finally back. Jordan Love played a great game. He worked well with Josh Jacobs, even with Romeo Doubs, maybe the number one receiver, arguably the number one receiver out. Everyone stepped up around. The defense, Dolphins of the ball, 1st and goal at the 1. Walk away with absolutely nothing.
That was
the Packers defense did a great job. They got turnovers. They were able to lock things down. Like, the team played a complete game. And I think that's why this Miami team that was hot, right? They'd won their last 3. They were coming in looking good, trying to get a foothold in the AFC, compete for that 7 seed, had Tua and an explosive offense. And really, for the Miami Dolphins, did not have a lot of major injuries. Right, almost everybody was healthy or at least close to healthy. To come in and get absolutely drubbed by the Packers,
the defense.
I think that shows the Packers played a very good game.
Yeah, the Miami defense has its own set of injuries, but offensively, they came in mostly healthy, especially the big names, and they've been playing so well, as you said, 29 points per game over the last 5, and really, I mean, my attention goes here. The game ended in the first half. Miami had that chance on the 1-yard line where you said Green Bay had the big stop late in the game. Still, 16-point game at that point in time. So, if they make it 8 in the fourth quarter, it's a game. But Green Bay really was able to put their foot on the gas early. They were up 24-3 at halftime. And we talked about it a few times. Green Bay's failures in the red zone, failures to score touchdowns and put teams in a difficult position early in games. Well, they did it against San Francisco. We said they're up won that game 24-7 in that one. And in this one, so the Dolphins get that initial 3 and out. And from that muffed punt on, everyone knows Jack picked the Dolphins in this game. From that muffed punt on, the Packers scored 3 touchdowns out of 4 drives to really put the pressure on Miami, who needed this game bad. Let's go real quick. We'll hit Jordan Love first, because a lot of Packers fans were on Jordan Love heading into the bye week following the loss to the Lions. We said it on our show. It was a weird time to kind of turn on Jordan because he was so clearly injured in that Lions game. Matt LaFleur said, our quarterback can't move right now. And that seemed to be a moment where Packers fans weren't calling for Malik Willis or anything, but just saying like, hey, what the hell's going on here? And it's like, guys, he's hurt. Let's let him recover. Since then, so the Jaguars and Lions game, Jordan Love's passer rating was 73.3 and 69.7. In the 3 games coming out of the bye, Ziggy, 113 against the Bears, 261 yards, a touchdown, 1 pick. 107.7 against the Niners, 163, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. 129.2 rating today, 274, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. This is the Jordan Love that we feared could come out for Green Bay. And it's the perfect time. He seems to really have his clock synced up on excelling when it matters in late November, December football. And if this is the Jordan Love we're going to get, I think the Lions, the Vikings, the Eagles, the contenders in the NFC, we're all put on notice tonight that Green Bay is shifting towards that full potential team we feared.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, Jordan Love looked very good. I don't think he did anything particularly special, but what you've wanted to see from Jordan Love is just games where he plays good, clean football and doesn't make any mistakes.
100%.
Right? What have Packers fans been on it most? It's been the turnovers. It's been the inconsistent play. It's not been taking what's available. In this game, I mean, first of all, shout out Jaden Reed. It seems like whenever the Packers need a big play from a guy because somebody's out, Jaden Reed is always the one who steps up. He's really been a revelation this year for the Packers. He's been the guy. But, I mean, Josh Jacobs had a great game, too. The offensive line played pretty well. Like, Jacobs, I know he only had 43 yards, but there were a couple solid carries. He was able to get a touchdown in. It just felt like whenever the Packers needed a play in that first half, it came. Now, obviously, the second half wasn't as good. They settled for 2 field goals and didn't do a whole lot else. But at that point, the game was so put away that I don't put too much stock into it. To be able to come out and punch a team in the gut, that's the mark of a really good NFL team. That's why the Lions have been so successful week in, week out, right? They get off to a huge lead and then they just don't take their foot off the gas. It's very hard to catch up. The Packers did an excellent job of that this week against the Dolphins. And you could see it, right? Once the energy was deflated, once they realized they were going to have to play tough football, they just didn't have it in them. The Packers were clearly, they took advantage of the home environment. They clearly were comfortable. Yeah, I was really impressed with the Packers offense this week. And as you say, this is the Jordan Love and the Packers offense that scares fans of other NFC North teams.
And you mentioned it earlier, no Romeo Doubs as well today. So they were doing all this without, as you said, arguably their best receiver. I mean, I think Jane Reed is right now, but
he's the comfort receiver for sure, Romeo Doubs.
It's just, you know, when we talked about this all year, and this has been the calling card for Green Bay, is the plethora of weapons. Even if you look today, you know, no one particularly went off. You had Tucker Kraft, 6 for 78. Josh Jacobs, 4 for 74 in the air. Christian Watson, 2 for 67, had the big 46-yarder. Like, Wicks, 4 for 30. Reed, 3 for 24, 2 touchdowns. They just have so many guys who can attack you that when Jordan Love is not making mistakes, you know, share the wealth, spread it around, and let these guys, let these playmakers get in the open field. And they head into next week against Detroit on the road, Thursday Night Football, playing their best football of the year right now. I don't. Is there any argument that Green Bay's playing their best football right now?
No, there's absolutely not. They look hot right now.
Yeah, so it's timing up well again. And Detroit, you know, had the little slip up in the second half today against Chicago. You start to wonder, all right, if Green Bay can steal that one in Detroit the way they did last year, when Detroit was also playing good football, you know, the NFC North gets a whole lot more interesting. I think people have written off this division for a while to Detroit, despite the Vikings and Packers being right there. And this is a game where things can change drastically in the whole picture for the NFC playoffs if Green Bay can go in. It's crazy. Like, we're going to be Packers fans for the second time in 3 weeks. It's a horrible feeling. And most Vikings fans would be right to get mad at us because we never root for Green Bay. I mean, that's just like one of the golden rules. But I'm interested in the Super Bowl business here, and that requires getting the bye week. And so I thought that was a great showing from Green Bay. It was a disheartening showing, but I mean, look at the ground: 14 carries, 39 for Miami, 25 for 114 for the Packers. They dominated the game physically. It was a great showing. Great Thanksgiving for them.
The Packers' run defense has been absolutely incredible, right? They faced the 49ers and the Dolphins the past 2 weeks, 2 of the better rushing teams in the NFL. Certainly, I know Christian McCaffrey's been hurt. I know Devon Achane hasn't been his best self on the ground the past few weeks. Like, those are 2 difficult guys to contain. Over the past 2 weeks, the Packers have given up a combined 83 rushing yards on 30 attempts and 0 rushing touchdowns. Like, this run defense is lights out. And when you talk about some of the best teams in the NFC, right? For instance, you look at Detroit, you look at Philadelphia. Those offenses, obviously, they have great passing attacks. There's no doubt about it. But the running game is so important to both of those teams, right? Whether it's Gibbs and Montgomery for Detroit. We saw today how important they were against Chicago. Whether it's Philadelphia, Saquon Barkley's making an MVP case for himself. A run defense, even though we often don't think of that as being important, I think in the AFC it's a little bit less important. Against these elite NFC teams, you really want to have a great run defense. And that being a strength for the Packers defense, I think, is going to help them a lot as they go into some of the tougher divisional games and get ready to go into the playoffs. So I wanted to highlight that in particular, something really impressive.
Well, yeah, you saw what Detroit did today to Chicago in the first half, how they're able to set the tone with Gibbs and Montgomery. They both were over. I think their rushing props were like 46 and 50 yards, and they were over that in like the beginning of the second quarter each. It's Detroit's able to get you to commit to stopping the run, and that's when Goff can make you pay. If Green Bay is able to manage that the best they can, because I don't think anyone can really slow down the Detroit rushing attack, but you got to try and manage it to some degree, and then that could prevent Jared Goff from being as lethal in the air as he has been. And you get Jair back too. People forget, like, Jair was out tonight. That was another big piece.
Yeah, it's Jair being back, I think, will be important because there's no doubt there's playmakers in this Packers secondary. I mean, Xavier McKinney impresses every single week he's out on the field. But it's good to have somebody like Jair who, when healthy and when playing his best football, can really limit. He's not necessarily, Jair Alexander is not going to be a guy getting a dozen interceptions in the season, but he is a guy who's going to be able to shut down half the field for the Packers. So yeah, honestly, as a Vikings fan, like sitting back here and looking at this team, I was hoping that the Dolphins would go in and that their explosive offense would just be able to blow the door off the Packers and the Packers would be playing catch up. This team is starting to look dangerous. And this is the first week. I think Packers fans will agree that I really sit back looking at the offense, looking at the defense, looking at the special teams. The fact that special teams got him a turnover at the beginning of the game was so important. But like, this was the first week that I really felt like we saw what the Packers could be, and demolishing a really strong Miami team. The record does not tell the story of that team. It's scary stuff.
It's also what we talked about with Philadelphia and Detroit. They don't make mistakes. It's specifically Detroit right now, that they will capitalize on any opportunity that you give them to, either make a comeback, and as in the case with the Texans and the Vikings earlier in the year, or to separate the way they've done from these AFC South teams and the blowout games. Like, they make you pay. And the most critical errors that the Green Bay was making was costing them earlier in the year. You had all the love turnovers. You had missed field goals costing you games. If you look up and down the Packers' losses this year, you had missed field goals against the Vikings. You didn't convert touchdowns against Detroit. Like, there were a lot of things that Packer fans look back on, whether or not they're being a little too generous to their team. Like the Vikings, I think the Vikings were in complete control. But Packers fans will say, hey, we missed 2 kicks. All right, I'll give you that. You can't do that against Detroit. If you want to be a Super Bowl team, which I think everyone's back on that train in Wisconsin right now, you need to be close to flawless to beat the great teams. And that's the thing that, like you said it before, that's the takeaway right now is Jordan Love has been much cleaner for multiple weeks now. The defense, the kicking game, much more efficient. And if you get that version of Green Bay, they kind of become more like Philadelphia and Detroit in that they make you pay because of the quick striking ability. So, you find your ways to separate from the middle of the pack. And for Green Bay, I think there's so much talent that just by reducing those mistakes, you'll be able to rise to the top. And I am a little nervous. The nice thing is that we won't have to deal with Green Bay in the playoffs, really, till it would be the NFC Championship game in all likelihood. But I would not be happy to draw them in the first round of the playoffs right now at all.
No, yeah, they'd be going to where? Assuming they finish around the 5 or 6
Seattle
seed,
right now.
They'd be going to Seattle, or maybe they'll climb a little bit and go to Atlanta. I like the Packers in both of those games. If they're going to play like this.
Me too. I still feel good about Minnesota in these situations. Actually, that Viking Packer game coming up in Minnesota is going to be awesome, and could be like, I'd much rather go to Atlanta than go to Seattle or San Francisco, whoever it winds up being. That's a big game for that regard. But yeah, I think that any of these teams who are going to be the 3-4 seed are not happy, because in most years these Vikings or Packers teams would be division winners. And just given the Lions, how great of a year they've had.
Yeah, the NFC North, we're through 12 weeks and there's 3 teams of 9 or more wins.
Unbelievable. It's crazy to look at. It's both impressive. Like you're a little bit impressed with the division, like proud, like, hey, like look at us. But most of my reaction just goes to immediately like, are you kidding me right now? We're 9-2 and we have to deal with this crap around us. But
yeah, we're 9-2 and there's a reasonable chance we'll finish third in the division.
You know what? Hey, it's for the schedule next year. If you're looking for silver linings. But dude, real quick, I just wanted to say, Ziggy, you were texting me in live time during that Lions-Bears game. It was like that was a fire everyone, don't get on the team plane kind of an ending for Detroit, for Chicago. I could not believe what I was watching.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Eberflus, I think, was done basically no matter what. Barring the Bears winning like 6 games in a row and making the playoffs, it was over for him. But I thought last week, if you had asked me, I would have said, look, there's not a lot of benefit to be gained from firing him. It's not like you're getting a head start on the coaching. Keep things as they are. I've done a complete 180 now. Somebody has to be held accountable for whatever happened in Chicago at the end of this game. It's as if Eberflus, when he was game planning, I know a lot went wrong, right? Caleb Williams, he audibled the play and he shouldn't have done that. Like a lot went wrong there. But it's as if Matt Eberflus never thought in practice, maybe we're going to be in a close game. Maybe we should have a clear game plan for what we do if it's a close game and it's a short situation. It's as if he never expected they had a chance to win. Because if I don't know, I'm not an NFL coach, but it seems to me that you have to anticipate the possibility of being in a situation where you've got 30 seconds left, the clock's running, and you need to run one play to get into field goal range. Like, that's a moment where as a coach, like, Dan Campbell, he's got a play for that, right? You can guarantee every single person on Detroit knows exactly where to go. Matt LaFleur, every single person knows exactly where to go if that happens. Can you imagine Jordan Love not knowing what to do there?
No.
But it seemed like the Bears just didn't have a plan. They didn't consider this situation would happen. They didn't communicate clearly. And not only that, but upon realizing that nobody knew the plan, he didn't call a timeout. He could have called a timeout 30 seconds left. You run a play.
Could have called it with 20 seconds left. You could have called it with 20 seconds.
Yeah. I understand why they wanted to hold the timeout, but they were just completely unprepared for a critical situation.
Again.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it's the Hail Mary, completely unprepared. Whatever happened last week, completely unprepared. Like this Bears team, they consistently aren't ready. And at a certain point, you can see it from the post-game interviews. He's lost the locker room. Players are fed up.
Even the whole body language, the whole game. DJ Moore, every single time Caleb throws to him, DJ Moore seems to come back dejected or like totally uninterested. It's, I don't want to kick Eberflus too much because obviously he knows, looking back on this, he clearly knows he messed up. And I'm not going to get too much. Like everyone in the world knows, any NFL fan knows that was botched to the highest degree. But it was still mind boggling. We were texting about the game as it was going on. Like, all right, like let's go here. Bear down, baby. We're talking with Weston Dell. And this is exactly how it had to have been, Ziggy. There's a minute left in the game, Chicago driving. And my family's like, all right, let's get ready for dinner, everyone. I was like, me and my dad are sitting down like, what? Guys, a minute left. And then, we're trying to, everyone knows this drill. Any guy knows, so like when your family's starting to sit down, you're trying to stall a little bit. Finally, I'm like, Dad, we have to go in there. And I pull the game up on YouTube TV on my phone. Like my sister sees me watching. I'm like, you better not say a word. Like shh, keep this quiet. And I had no sound on, and I saw the pass, I think it was to Keenan Allen, to put him on the 12-yard line. And it was like, they're going to win this game. And then,
at least we're going to overtime.
At least we're going to overtime. But I was like, they're winning this game right now. Caleb was great in the second half. I mean, there are silver linings always. And the Bears fans can be like, Caleb looked good against the best team in the league in the second half. But then you have the hands of the face.
Tevin Jenkins punches someone in the face and knocks off his helmet. I remember like my uncle was watching. He said the refs are really getting involved in this ending. It's like, I don't know if you're a ref, what you're supposed to do. Tevin Jenkins punches someone in the helmet and it flies off. Like, you got to call that.
And then Caleb's just taken so many sacks that, that one at the end of the game that can't have that, can't afford that. There's in the first half, it felt like, every time he looked at the screen, Jack talked about it before, he always says this isn't Arizona State anymore. You can't take these, like, he takes crippling sacks for the Chicago offense that hopefully over time for Bears fans, he'll figure out. So you could take the Caleb good play and be happy about that. But just another disappointing loss for a team that was 4-2. They've lost 6 in a row in such Bears fashion. And, I don't feel horrible for Chicago, but I feel bad for Weston and our Bears friends because they've had a tough go over the past month or so. So, all right, we'll have plenty more to react to later on Sunday after the games, and of course we'll be going after the Lions Packers on Thursday. Ziggy, get back to your family. I know in California it's only 9:00, so I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving to everyone listening, and I hope everyone's having a great time with friends and family. If you any parting words.
This is almost the best weekend in Vikings history, or at least in this season. For us, the Vikings could have beaten Arizona at home. The Bears could have beat the Lions, and the Packers could have lost to the Dolphins. Instead, it feels like the nightmare. The Lions consolidate in a game that maybe they shouldn't have won. The Packers look incredible. I'm sure Arizona is going to come into our building and blow us out this weekend.
No.
I'm going to the Notre Dame USC game on Saturday. I can only hope that as a poor Minnesota Vikings fan, our luck turns around there.
Oh man, Ziggy, as a Viking fan that this is look, we're being optimistic, so this isn't happening, but this you can see the writing on the wall for what happens from Saturday till Sunday at 4:00 when the Viking game ends.
Oh,
well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I love this time of year, man. It's great. All right, go have fun with your family, and we'll see you guys with more after week 13 on Sunday.